I'd like to call the meeting to order at 6 p.m. Mrs. DeCarlo, can I please have a roll call?
Yes. Mrs. Brooks? That's all right. Mrs. Brooks?
I think she said present.
Mrs.
Here.
Cordero?
Here.
Mrs. Mezak? No? Mrs. Shields?
Here.
Mrs. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Thomasini?
Here.
Mrs. Elmore?
Here.
We have a forum.
Thank you. The New Jersey Open Public Meeting Act was passed to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice and attend meetings of public bodies at which business affecting their interest is discussed and acted upon. In accordance with this provision of the Act, the Rockaway Township Board of Education has caused notice of the date, time, and place of said meetings to be published in the Daily Record, Star Ledger, and posted in all schools in the district, in the municipal building of the township and the township library, as well as the district website. Does any board member wish to object to the conduct of this meeting for the purpose as stated in the public notice? May I please have a motion to waive the flag?
So moved.
Show of hands. Thank you. May I please have a motion to go into closed session? So moved.
Second.
Can you make a motion to flag?
Let it be noted at 6:02 p.m.
Sorry, man. All right. Will you, when you have
off those seats. I was like, "No, I'm not going to."
Let me know if we're reconvening at 7:30. Are you ready for the flag salute?
We don't normally play the video.
I can't hear you.
We don't normally play the video for that.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Can everyone please stand for the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Are we going to have a presentation first?
Yes. Yes. Workshop. Yes.
That's what I wanted to check. Because it was short. Good evening, everyone. We are starting this evening with a presentation from the KDM Girl Scouts. We're checking on to see if they're ready. I just want to note that we have two board members on virtual this evening, which is in conjunction with the governor's executive order and the spirit of the Open Public Meetings Act. So we allow them to contribute to the meeting virtually. Just wanted to state that to start off. And I believe that the Girl Scouts are ready. Are you ladies ready?
Okay, well, let me just on behalf of the school district, thank you all for coming out tonight. We're super excited to hear about the project that you did at KDM, and we're very proud of all the work you did. And I'm going to invite Principal Wisniewski to come on up to the mic and just share a little bit of background about everything you all donated to KDM. Thank you.
So tonight I'm honored to present the Girl Scouts Troop 5125. Through heat, rain, poison ivy, and bees nests, this group worked together as a team to create a beautiful, safe, and well-planned evacuation route for the students of KDM. Thank you for letting me be part of your team, and at this time I'm going to turn it over to Emily Shield.
Welcome, ladies.
Hi, Emily. We're here.
Okay.
We're here on behalf of our Troop 5125, and this is our silver award. So for our silver award, we made a trail that safely connects KDM to the Holy Trinity Church, and if KDM ever needs to evacuate in the case of an active shooter, this is where they can evacuate, or for any other emergency reasons, this is where they can go to the church. So for our trail, we weeded and cleared other debris, and we lined the trail with rocks, and we put down mulch to make the trail nicer. And so during this evacuation, students would exit the building the way they would exit for a fire drill, and they would make their way to the trail at the end of the field, and then they would go to the church. And due to COVID restrictions, they would have to be socially distanced. In preparation for our evacuation plan, we were involving stakeholders by contacting the KDM staff via Google Meet. These stakeholders included the teachers, special education, regular education teachers, secretarial staff, and the building principal. We presented our plan and identified obstacles such as fire escape roads closing and gate locks, and then we made the provisions and applied our plan. This is how the students will evacuate from their classes. Kindergarten will go out the kindergarten exit. First grade will go out the main lobby. Second grade, half of them will go out the main lobby, and then the other half will go out the exit by the art and music room. Third grade will go out the exit by the art and music room. Fourth grade will go out the exit by the fifth grade wing. And fifth grade will also use that exit. Special education classes will go out the kindergarten wing door. And then the other half will and then the teachers in the office or lounge, depending on where they are, will use the cafeteria or main office.
The Civil War is given to cadet Girl Scouts when they focus on an issue that they care for and are passionate about and choose to take action on. It gives them a chance to show that they are leaders in the community, organized, determined, and dedicated. Through this project, we learn organizing meetings and not just with each other, but also with the stakeholders, collaborating with the community, contacting local businesses, building relationships with the community, understanding safety protocols and procedures, time management, and seeing the project from start to finish, how physically demanding a project can be, and how to overcome obstacles. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies.
I just have a comment.
Girls, don't go anywhere.
Thank you for presenting. I'm glad we're all on board some of this, so I've seen this all go on throughout the summer, and we really got worked very hard, and I also want to give a shout out to Mrs. Jasinski. It started as the girls going to her with presenting their idea, and can we do this? And she really turned into more of a mentoring role for the girls, and really worked with them throughout the whole entire day, and took their hand and showed them how to make a presentation, how they, simple things, and I appreciate having other girls do as well.
Ladies, this is a very significant thing that you did for your community, and it will be lasting for years to come, and it will affect the next generations in KDM, and you're affecting the greater community, and you should be very proud, because this is a piece that you could put into your community.
Thank you. Good job.
Well done, ladies. We're going to continue with the rest of the meeting. You're more than welcome to stay. Up to you. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. We appreciate it very much.
Okay, on to the rest of the meeting. During the course of the board meeting, the Rockaway Township Board of Education offers members of the public an opportunity to address issues regarding the operations of Rockaway Township Public Schools. The board reminds those individuals who take this opportunity to identify themselves by name, address, and to limit their comments to items listed on the agenda or items directly related to the operations of the school district. Issues raised by members of the public may or may not be responded to by the board. All comments will be considered and a response will be forthcoming if and when appropriate. The board asks that the members of the public be courteous and mindful of the rights of other individuals when speaking. Specifically, comments regarding students and employees of the board are discouraged and will not be responded to by the board. Students and employees have specific legal rights afforded by the laws of New Jersey. The board bears no responsibility nor will be liable for any comments made by the members of the public. Members of the public should consider their comments in light of the legal rights of those affected or identified in the comments and be aware that they are legally responsible and liable for their comments. Can I please have a motion to open to the public?
So moved.
Show of hands. And just to confirm, there's nobody from the public? Okay. Just so everyone knows, there is no one here from the public remaining to speak, so I'm going to ask to close. Can I have a motion, please, to close?
So moved.
Second. Show of hands, please. Next on the agenda, we have several communications. I checked earlier today, and there were no further communications. Mrs. DeCarlo, was there anything else?
No, there wasn't.
Okay, thank you for confirming. Next on the agenda, I'd like to approve the minutes of the October 7th board meeting. Can I please have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Thank you. Tracy. Any discussion? If not, may I please have a roll call?
Mrs. Brooks?
Yes.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
Mrs. Brooks?
Yes.
She said yes.
Mrs. Cordaro?
Yes.
Mrs. Mezak?
Yes.
Is it?
Yes.
She said yes.
Mrs. Shields?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Thomasini?
Yes.
Mrs. Halpern?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Next on the agenda this evening, we have the superintendent's report, and he is going to be presenting on the strategic plan dashboard.
Hey, good evening, Rockaway Township. I hope everyone is well. I know these last couple of months have been trying on many levels. Please know we continue to appreciate your partnership and your support, ensuring we can provide as much in-school education for our students as possible. This evening, I'd like to begin what I will consider to be a ritual process where 3 times a year, I'll come before the community and report out about our current strategic plan. Everything I'm about to share with you all tonight is on our website and posted there already. This first document, I would like to orient you to what you're looking at here. This is a one-pager. It's a one-pager, sort of a plan on the page approach that we are trying to, in a simplistic way, report out our progress on our strategic plan. Now, the full strategic plan is over 15 pages. So to get all of this information on one page in a coherent manner did take some thought and planning. The circles you see in the middle of the page there, where it says academic success, supportive culture, and facilities and security, those represent our main goal areas. Underneath that, in those boxes, there's basically 3 categories. You have the planning phase, which basically indicates that these projects have not yet started, but are in the planning phase. Then you have the in progress component, which talks about where our projects generally are either implemented partially or close to full implementation. And then finally, you have the category of completed. And these are things that we are checked the box in our strategic plan that have been completed. There are a few items on here that I'd just like to highlight and speak to. Under academic success, under writer's workshop in the planning phase, that is very much something that continues to be in the planning phase. And our intention is to move to a writer's workshop in our elementary schools at some point. But due to the pandemic conditions of how our schools have been redesigned in our hybrid model, that is very much something that we're not yet sure when we will launch. We first need to more fully implement the Readers Workshop in partnership with our teachers before we make a commitment to that. So I did want to speak to that. In progress, there's something I wanted to highlight there under academic success that's very much underway and candidly has never been more important. And that's the universal screening procedures that we're committed to doing 3 times a year. As families prepare to participate in family conferences next month, you're going to receive a data dashboard that's going to give you a lot of information about your students' progress academically in a variety of different areas. That will then happen again in terms of the screening towards the end of January and then at the end of this school year, and something that we intend to do every school year going forward. Completed, you're about to experience for the first time is our K-5 standards-based report card in November, and you can see that as a project that's highlighted there under academic success as a completed project. Moving across the page to supportive culture, I did want to highlight the first bullet under the planning phase. All of our schools are engaged in exciting work around character education. 3 of our 6 schools have already been acknowledged as schools of national character, national schools of character. And we are going to continue to move forward with our approach to ensuring that our district earns that same level of distinction. On the board agenda tonight, actually, we have 2 staff members who are being appointed to help us lead that work. Under in progress, I did want to highlight the second bullet down, restorative circles and conferences. Now, restorative practices has been launched now for well over a year and a half here at Copeland Middle School. And the focus initially was on training a leadership team, training a select group of teachers and a select group of students. And the focus of that training was on how circles can be used to create healthy and maintain healthy relationships, as well as create and maintain inclusive environments. The next exciting step that we're going to start to take this year in the work of restorative practices is learning about how we can use conferences to repair relationships, whether it's relationships between students or relationships between a teacher and a student or administrator and a student. There are ways to structure individual conferences in a restorative manner that will repair those relationships. And you'll start to see that work start to take off here at Copeland this school year. Community forums is still something I'm very much committed to. I've just been hesitant to try to organize something that is in person, given the pandemic conditions, and a virtual community forum is something I may need to do, and I'll have more information out about that in the coming month. And then lastly, under completed, on this board agenda tonight, we commit to our family nights, which I know are always a very popular experience, and we will be ensuring that those happen again this school year as well. Moving over to that final box under facilities and security, I sent out a letter last week to the KDM community updating them about where we are with the water treatment system. We are still in the planning phases, but we are working very closely with the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection to ensure that the plan we put in place for remediating the issues with the water treatment system there for the long term does align with the most recent regulations. Those communications are in process, and at this time, what I shared with the KDM community a week ago, at this time we're on track for that new system to be implemented next summer. It is our top priority across all of our capital improvement projects. Under in progress there, but soon to be moved to completed, I'm excited to say that we will have our 5 Class 3 officers in place in the coming week to 10 days in all 5 elementary schools. And on top of that, we'll be putting in trainings and protocols to ensure that they are valuable members of our school community and are also in positions to be great role models to our students and maintaining healthy relationships with them and families as well. And then lastly, I'll just highlight, we're super excited about the 2 parking lots that were completed this past summer for both Stony Brook and DBO. And you can see there in that one pager how those projects are outlined and organized. I'm now going to go to the next slide. I should have said next document, my apologies. So this next document, so when we think about our strategic planning document and process, it's basically broken down to 3 steps. The main plan is that foundation, it's a 15-page document online. The next step is the 1-pager, which I've already explained to you tonight about how we want to use that so we can communicate all of the aspects of our strategic plan in a cohesive way to the community. However, there needs to be something in the middle that has a bit more detail. And this is a 5-page dashboard. You can see that on this dashboard, you have the same goal areas, academic success and agility, but you have more detailed breakdown of progress and feedback given to the community. For example, for goal area number 1, there are a total of 6 objectives. So if I go to the 2nd page there, you'll see the other objectives that are listed. And then across the page, you kind of get more specific feedback about where we are under each objective. And on the final column there, you actually get a grade, if you would. Either the project or the objective is considered to be on track, or it's considered to be in progress, or candidly, it's considered to be off track. So as you review this document, we go to the next page there, you'll see that it's organized the same way for goal area number 2. And similar to goal area number 1, goal area number 2 also includes 6 objectives. You can see how they're evaluated. There is one objective in our whole plan that right now I'm grading as off track. and that's there on the next page. It's objective number 5, where it says implement a service learning program at all grade levels to foster ongoing community involvement. It's not that our schools are not committed to service learning, that many rituals are not already in place in our schools, but we don't yet have the mechanisms in place where we're creating a plan that synergizes that experience across all the schools. And so at this point, I'm considering that to be an off-track objective. The other objectives across all 3 goals are either in progress or on track based on my assessment. And then we'll go to the final page there, goal area number 3, and you can see the 3 objectives that we identify under facilities and security. For those in the community or those staff members who are interested in learning more about our strategic plan and where we are with specific projects, I think this would be a great resource for you. And as I said, it is on our website right now for you to take a look at. There's one more matter I'd like to update the community about tonight in my report, and that's the last slide of my presentation. As you all know, we had our first positive COVID-19 case last week in the Stony Brook community. In my communications to the entire community, I did get some questions about why were families in other schools receiving the information about what was playing out in Stony Brook. And it's really, there are 2 reasons behind that from my perspective. One, I do see us at the end of the day as one community. And when communications relate to the pandemic, I think it's important that I communicate them with as much transparency as possible and share them with all. And so it's my intention to continue to do that. The second rationale I had for that was it was our first case, and I knew anxieties would be high. Another question I've gotten, perfectly appropriate question from the community about the Stony Brook case last week, was why closed? If you take a strong look at the guidance or a very clear look at the guidance, one case doesn't necessarily mean a school needs to go into a full school closure. And they would be correct. I did intentionally take this more aggressive approach because there were some details about this specific case that I cannot share with the community that just did give me reason for pause. And I thought I wanted to make sure we sided on the side of safety for both our students and staff. Next, let me say a little bit about contact tracing, as this was the first time our community, our school district experienced contact tracing. It's important to understand is when there is a positive case, the local health department in the community where the positive case resides takes lead on the contact tracing. And generally what the contact tracing looks like is a detailed interview from the local health department to the positive case to try to determine who would be defined as a close contact. And if you're defined as a close contact, you would then be receiving information about the need to quarantine. What I want to highlight for the community is that as a district, we cooperate fully in all contact tracing. We are interviewed by other local health departments, and we make sure that we are sharing the information that they need to conduct as many interviews and as much additional follow-up as possible. And that communication candidly is happening on a daily basis between our school nurses and local health departments across all of our schools. And our school nurses are maintaining in our schools their master list of quarantine status for whether it's families or staff members, whatever it might be. I do want to reassure the community that our school leaders and our school nurses are remaining vigilant in monitoring this process on a daily basis. And then next, I do also, though, equally want to emphasize the importance of confidentiality. Stigma related to COVID-19 is a real thing. And it's important that we're very careful about what information we share and how we share it, so that those who may have a positive case do not also then have to wrestle with the stigma that could come along with that. So I do want to just remind the community about the importance of confidentiality and why we will continue to take confidentiality in all matters related to this pandemic very seriously. And then lastly, we must remain vigilant. I know you're seeing the same news reports I'm seeing about potential spikes in the pandemic, and we'll continue to monitor that daily. I will be sending out another community update at the end of this week, reminding our families about the travel advisory. That is something we will continue to take very seriously and require that there is quarantine if a family or a child is traveling to a state on that advisory list. We really must continue to be vigilant to make sure that we're doing everything we can to keep everyone safe. In closing, thank you to the community. Thank you to our leadership team. Thank you to our teachers. And thank you to our Board of Education for your support these past few months. These have been challenging times. At the same time, it's also been quite inspiring to to work in and serve a community that can come together so effectively as we have. I wish you all very well, stay safe, and with that, I conclude my report for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone like to comment, questions?
I just thank you for the thorough update and explanation.
I agree.
Oh, just thank you for the thorough update and explanation.
Okay, thank you. As always, Dr. Tarnavian, thank you for the professional presentation and putting all that information out there and keeping it accessible to all of us to be able to view. Very much appreciated. And also for being diligent with the COVID. It's a delicate issue right now. And, you know, and being erring on the side of caution and providing as much updates as you do and how thorough you are, thank you very much for that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
We also know that this document took well over a year to come to its final resting place. And I know that in the middle of your planning, there was a pandemic, and quite honestly, I'm impressed with what I see. I love this first page. It really brings your attention to what we're focused on as well.
Occurred this summer, because I would love to take full credit for this one pager, but it was really our leadership team. They came together during our leadership retreat, spent an afternoon, and their vision and their hard work kind of really put the foundation in place for this design. So just another shout out to them for their great work. And thank you.
Anyone else? Also, I meant to comment regarding the response to having to quarantine. I know as an educator myself, this is an extensive process, and I greatly appreciate the information that came to us. And again, you reiterated, staying social distance at home, that all is part of it, and staying vigilant, and not forgetting that there's an invisible enemy that we're fighting with. So I appreciate you highlighting that. Next on the agenda is the business administrator's report. Assistant Carlo?
Good evening, Rockaway Township. I'd like to report on a few upcoming items that will involve the business office. We will begin to work on the ASSA, the application for state school aid next week. We have a tentative date for our audit for mid-November. Due to the pandemic, our auditors were delayed in getting their municipal audits done. Since the results of the audit were delayed, we are unable to plan our budget timeline at this point. We cannot open the new budget year until we are able to close out the 1920 school year, and this cannot be done until the audit is complete. The punch list for the Stony Brook site improvement is just about completed. The work at DBO will coincide with the change order that was approved for putting new sidewalks and stairs on the north side of the building. They will be working on punch list items while Jaguar letter and drawer is ready for submission to the DEP by the end of this week for the KDM water treatment system. We are asking for an extension on our permit as we were unable to complete the work over the summer due to the pandemic, as well as extensive measurements that needed to be done to see if we could fit all the equipment in the boiler room. We plan to have this work completed next summer. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Next on the agenda is the curriculum report.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the board, and hello, Rockaway Township. Please remember that parent conferences will be held beginning on November 10th. This year, we will be holding them virtually using Google Meet. Please be advised of the following elements of the process, as they are obviously different than previous years. All scheduling will be done via students' Google accounts. This is to ensure both the safety of these conferences and due to changes in Google's regulations regarding how meets can be accessed. Notification will come from building principals this week as to how to schedule and participate in these virtual conferences. During the week of the conferences, parents will access the meets through the students' Google accounts. If there are any extenuating circumstances regarding conferences and connectivity or access, please contact your building principal and they will help resolve the issues so that the conferences can be held successfully. We are well into our K-6 launch of Ready Mathematics, and our teachers and students are moving along well. We've had several training opportunities with curriculum associates and look forward to several more throughout this year. Students began the year by taking the iReady Diagnostic, an adaptive assessment designed to provide teachers with actionable insight into student needs. The diagnostic offers a complete picture of student performance and growth, eliminating the need for multiple redundant tests. Diagnostic results also set a personalized learning path for each student, ensuring they're working on instruction that matches their unique learning needs. That path, called My Path, is vital for the remediation of prerequisite skills. Also, please pay attention to the updated printable district calendar available on our website, as it contains vital information about upcoming marking period and trimester end dates. Copeland Middle School is operating on the traditional marking period schedule, while all of our elementary schools are now operating on trimester schedules. The date for the end of the marking period at Copeland is November 16th. Report cards are available on the 23rd. The date for the end of the trimester for elementary schools is December 9th, and report cards will be available on the 16th. Additionally, we are nearing the launch of our data dashboards for grades K through 8, which will be found in the parent portal in Genesis. These dashboards contain information about your child with regard to the assessments conducted during the first month and a half of school. We will notify each family when these are available in the portal. Thank you and have a great evening.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? No? We will move on to committee reports.
One of our operations, we met last Thursday, the 22nd. Aaron and Mr. Tomasini joined us. Mrs. Gross is not available to. Just to highlight some of the things, we did discuss the class 3 officers. And as Dr. Cheney had said, we currently have an officer in each school. Draft SOP manual and vision statement was created and is in the process of being finalized. And we are really excited about the positive influence these officers will have on our students and the school community. As well, regarding facilities, unfortunately, for the safety of our students and staff at this time, our indoor facilities are still not available to outside entities. That's all I have.
Thank you. Any questions? The policy committee met on October 15th from 6:25 to 7:55 at central office. In attendance were Dr. T, Christy LaRue, Nancy Helberg, and myself as the chair. We discussed policy 1649, the Federal Families First Coronavirus COVID Response Act, which is mandated and it's new. We did receive advice from the board attorney that was here last time, Jacqueline Morgis, that it's a best practice to adopt this. We also had our vendor's attorney review the language changes, as well as Dennis, our current board attorney. We reviewed the language changes because some items were removed regarding the private sector. And we just wanted to make sure that we had these. We also discussed bylaw 0155.1, and that's board member participation in board meetings. We discussed the additional feedback received from the full board, and also discussed the purpose of the policy for the Rockaway Township Board of Education. In addition, we discussed policy 1648, policy 1648.02, 1648.03. These are all related to the Restart and Recovery Plan. One is regarding remote learning options for family. The other is full-time remote instruction. We did recently revise it to reflect there was a new policy alert 221 that came out recently, and we added in those language additions. Appendices were also added from the district plan. They were revised and reflected current practices and expectations. And then finally, we discussed policies 3322 and 4322. Both are regarding staff members' use of cellular telephones. For the one regarding the support staff members, the title will be changed so that it aligns with the teaching staff members' title. Both were also identified as mandated on our website, but they are not actually mandated by Strauss-Esme. We did request additional information from New Jersey school boards, also from Strauss-Esme. So we have applied that feedback as well to this policy. As far as informational items, the policy chart, that organization chart, which is our mode of appraisal, that was shared, a little snapshot of that with the full board. The committee is currently working on the policy manual update, and those assignments were sent out to the policy committee on October 9th. Recommendations for this evening, you'll see later on the agenda that policy 1649 will be going up for first read, as will policy 1648, 1648.02, 1648.03, along with policy 3322 and policy 4322. We plan to put policy regulation 5200, which is attendance, up for a first read once the building administration has provided feedback and is shared with our committee, and Dr. Tina referenced this in a weekly update on October 5th. We anticipate our next meeting on November 11th. I just want to confirm if that works with Aaron and Christy. November 11th is during conferences week. It's the Wednesday, but it's the afternoon conferences day. And it will be from 6:15 to 8:15. And if you want to get back to me, that's fine. Are there any questions about the report? Questions? No? Thank you.
And I have the education committee report. Many of the things Mr. David spoke about are coming to reality that we've been talking about for months. The data dashboards and Ready Math. I'm very excited about the Ready Math as a math teacher, and all the components that follow with it. In our last meeting, we were talking about program changes to the GATE and using our media specialist, right? Our media specialist to work with the GATE program and working program. We've also talked about the upcoming curriculum projects. Music should be out soon. The German one is experience-based for those that are not taking German 2 and 9th graders. We talked about the gap units. Also, we talked about how we had to realign the benchmarks for the report cards to adjust to the trimesters. We were updated on the PD that the teachers were receiving during the month of October. And we heard more about the Aludo learning and how the teachers are using that with their PD, which was pretty cool. And it's another way, it's a fun way to interact. We talked about it with the election game before, but the fact that the adults get to play game too, it's fun. And in times like this, you need some kind of motivation. So I look forward to hearing about that. And just working on the RTI updates. And I believe that is all regarding our last meeting. So if there are any questions regarding education, take them. None? Okay. All right, next on the agenda, personnel items. We have items 1 through 42, but I need a motion to table item 20, 21, and 22. We have to rework them for the next meeting. So can I have a motion to table items 20, 21, and 22? So moved. And now I have to do a vote on, so can I have a roll call on tabling?
Mrs. Brooks?
Yes.
Mrs. Carvalho? Yes. Mrs. Messick?
Yes.
Mrs. Shields?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Thomasini?
Yes.
Mrs. Halford?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Now on to the remaining items for personnel. We have items, I need to make a motion to move items 1 through 19 and 23 through 42.
So, second.
There's no discussion on these items because there are personnel. So, and they go all the way through page 8. And I would like to have a roll call, Mrs. Carlo, on items 1 through 19 and 23 through 42, please.
Mrs. Brooks?
Yes.
Mrs. Carvalho? Yes. Mrs. Messick?
Yes.
Mrs. Shields?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Thomasini?
Yes.
Mrs. Halford?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Currently, there are no HIVs. Can you just confirm?
Yes, that's confirmed.
Thank you. Okay. The next section, education, there are 2 items for approval. Can I please have a motion to approve the education recommendations? So moved. Second. Thank you.
Mrs. Silver, we approve three.
I didn't hear it.
Three items, correct? Instead of 2
Three?
items? 3 on the other page?
I apologize, it's similar wording on the next page. It's 3 items. Yes, I apologize. Is there any board discussion?
I just had a question for the family nights, especially the December, January, are those looking to be like virtual?
Like we did last time.
I know that he's really looking forward to them. Thank you for bringing that up. And also the literacy consultant, that's an extension of our literacy program, an ongoing curriculum project. Mrs. DeCarlo, can I please have a roll call on special education items?
Mrs. Brooks?
Yes.
Mrs. Carvalho? Yes. Mrs. Messick?
Yes.
Mrs. Shields?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Thomasini?
Yes.
Mrs. Halford?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is administration. Could I please have a motion to approve the administration recommendations? There are 2 items. So moved.
Yes, special education.
Where?
D.
Page 9.
Page 9, D.
Did I skip a page? I think I have 2 pages. I did. One second, let me just adjust my notes. is special education, and we have 3 items. Can I please have a motion to approve special education?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any board discussion regarding special education? If not, may I please have a roll call?
Mrs. Brooks?
Yes.
Mrs. Carlaro? Yes. Mrs. Mezak?
Yes.
Mrs. Shields?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Thomasini?
Yes.
Mrs. Ellsworth?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, the next section now is the administration. There are 2 items. Can I please have a motion to approve the administration recommendations?
So moved.
Second. Thank you. Is there any discussion on these items?
Yes, just involving number 3. I went to the board office yesterday and signed off on the bills and all looked fine.
That's in finance.
That's under, oh, sorry.
That's okay.
I have no comment under administration.
That's okay. I skipped a whole section. So, if there are no other board discussion or comments, I will please ask for a roll call on the administrative items.
Mrs. Brooks?
Yes.
Mrs. Carlaro?
Yes.
Mrs. Mezak?
Yes.
Mrs. Shields?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Thomasini?
Yes.
Mrs. Ellsworth?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next, finance. There are 7 items, ending on page 13. Can I please have a motion to approve the finance recommendations?
Second.
Is there any board discussion?
As you may have heard, I went to the board office yesterday and signed off on the bills and all looks fine.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
Mrs. DeCarlo?
May I please have a roll call on the finance items? On page 7.
Mrs. Brooks, I think that's a question.
I'm sorry.
Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, I am wrong, because I thought I saw her waiting.
All right. Roll call. Are we ready for the roll call?
I have a question.
Okay. We should do that now. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Mrs. Brooks.
Number 4, Mrs. DeCarlo, is this the same issue we've been having? The acoustics in the music room and the HVAC system at Dwyer?
Yes, we finally got an acoustic engineer into the school to look at the room and try and figure out what can be done to stop the vibrating noise in the instrument music room. So we had some really good ideas that nobody else had thought about, because everybody was thinking about putting insulation around everything, but his thought was to put springs where the unit is attached, so that will lessen that lower volume noise. He said the insulation would get rid of that higher stuff, but if you want to get rid of the lower stuff, you need to have springs there, and then he recommend building casing around this, and that should reduce the noise. So we took some readings, noise levels, and then he provided us with a proposal to do the design work to apply it.
So this should resolve the same issue we've been having, right? That's all I want to know.
It should resolve.
Okay, thank you.
not, can I have a roll call on the finance items?
Mrs. Brooks,
Yes.
Mrs. Curlaro. Yes. Mrs. Mezak,
Yes.
Mrs. Shields,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Thomasini,
Yes.
Mrs. Elbor.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next items on the agenda are the policy items. Can I have a motion to approve the policies? So moved.
Second.
There are 6 here. Is there any board discussion for first read? Yes. Okay, so if you take a look at the first policy, 1649, the Federal Families First Coronavirus Response Act, we removed the references to the private sector. We added in with some assistance from Mrs. DiCarlo and Superintendent versus designee. We simplified the notice language and removed the regulatory authorities to make things a little bit more simple, a little more user-friendly, and we have the approval of Dennis. Are there any questions on this one? Next one, up for first read. Okay, next is policy 1648, restart recovery plan. This one is also mandated. We reworded some of the language, for example, on page 1 in the second paragraph to be more clear. We added in the Strauss-Esme language from the updated alert, and that would be near the bottom of page 1. And I'll identify some of that as well on page 3. If you look down to the letter C, that was some of the language from Strauss-Esme as this originally came out in June, and then they revised the policy at a later time. So we're just showing you that those changes, since this was already originally sent out to the full board without the language changes made. If you take a look at page 4, there again is additional language in bold from Strauss-Esme for the new policy alert. On page 5, the contact tracing item was moved just to improve the flow, and the appendix F in ABC order. It just made a little bit more sense to have it there. On the next page 6, it was just removed there, the contact tracing, and it was just that it was not removed from policy, just moved to a different page. On page 9, we added in that the school district will be making every attempt to solicit grants pursuant to this policy. And then something that Dr. T and I were in communication about today, he would like to remove on page 10 of 12, where it references career and technical education. This could potentially apply to middle school, but it's something that we do not need to keep in the policy, so it's a recommendation to remove it, so we'll have that removed when the policy goes up for the next time. So that is on page 10, and it's career and technical education, number 3, and it would be letters A, B, and C. In addition, we added on page 11 the appendices. Some of them were required, but the policy committee felt that we should just include all of the appendices from Dr. T's plan. So those additional appendices, D, H, I, J, P, Q, and U are also in here as well. And language updates were made based on changes that might have occurred since the original plan was created. If you notice on page 13, the symptoms list has been updated to align more so with items that were included on the questionnaire that's being done daily, and that's a document that's been revised and may continue to be revised as well. There was one more point that I wanted to bring to the board's attention on page 19 of 28. Physical education was added in, and I know Dr. T, who had reached out also and asked if we can include some sort of language in there regarding Copeland Middle School having gym outside on a regular basis.
Yeah, on second thought, when I gave this some additional thought, the going outside for PE in our elementary schools in Copeland is actually being driven by some different factors that I thought we should consider in the language. Here at Copeland, they almost have to be because we are using our gyms as classrooms. In the elementary schools, that's not the case. But we still want, obviously, to encourage the outside play as long as possible. But there's a significant different factor that's driving the outside play here at Copeland because of the need for classroom space, candidly. So I just, we'll work on some additional language to clarify that.
Thank you. I believe that is it for items to highlight. Are there any questions on this policy 1648? Policy 1648.02, the remote learning options for families. I do see something on the first page, and this is mandated as well. I do see something on the first page that I do believe, although we had originally put a strike through on it, because we had combined it when it first came out in the summer with the policy 1648 before additional guidance had come out, and then we realized we needed to separate it as a separate policy. So we had in the second paragraph crossed off policy 1648. I believe we should make mention of it here, and then all the other times that it's mentioned, we can just refer to it as this policy. As is in,
Remove that strike through?
just remove the strike through, yes. We simplified language in that first paragraph. On the next page, page 2, we identified the number of school days for what the administration was doing. On page 5 of 8, the same thing, we identified the number of school days, or calendar days. On page 6, we identified the number of school days as well. Revisions were made to parents/guardians to be consistent. And finally, at the end, the references include 1648, 1648.02, the one that's .02 needs to come out, and then policy 5200 and regulation. Are there any questions regarding this policy? Next, policy 1648.03. This is the full-time remote instruction policy. There were minimal edits here. This one is mandated. We just cleaned up some language and added in references at the end. Are there any questions regarding this policy?
Should we have the .03 as a reference and the .02 or not necessarily?
The 03 references 1648 and 1648.02. So that's why it's in there, but it was mistakenly, the .02 was mistakenly in the other policy. Again, we had combined all of them when we first got them and didn't have the guidance and separated them out. All right, moving along. Policy 3322, staff members' use of cellular telephones. This does not need to have the end there because it is not mandated as per Strauss estimate. So that was something recent that we had asked them about. And this is a policy that Dr. T had asked us to take a look at to help clear up what the expectation is for the staff. So we added in language stating that the teacher, unless it is for the purpose of facilitating those assigned school district responsibilities, may use their device or the app.
Yeah, and just a little bit of background on this policy and the next policy. The reason I asked to revise some of this language is in putting together a reopening plan, we really prioritize the use of a mobile app to help streamline communication and completion of the lunch screener and the daily screener. And some feedback we got from staff was there was some trepidation about using their cell phones in school because in the past, there's been a bit more of a punitive approach with that. And so wanted to just show our support to our staff that we do support them using the phones for the purposes of school assigned tasks here with this policy in hopes that they'll streamline their the screening protocols that they submit on a daily basis.
Thank you. And And then as far as policy 4322, we noticed that it had a different title, yet it's the same policy. So our recommendation was to make that change as well, so that the titles match, so that it would go to support staff members, use of cellular telephones. It also had an M on it, but we confirmed with Mr. Assessment that this is not a mandated policy, so that's not necessary to have it, and it was the same rationale that we took for this policy. Are there questions about those two? Any more discussion?
All right, can I please have a roll call on the policy items we just heard about?
Mrs. Brooks,
Yes.
Mrs. Brooks,
Yes.
Mrs. Curlaro. Yes. Mrs. Messick,
Yes.
Mrs. Shields,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Thomasini,
Yes.
Mrs. Selborne,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you. The next section of our agenda is old and new business. Is there any member that has any old or new business that they'd like to share?
I have two things. I attended the local municipal PTA meeting on the 14th. And it was nice, the first item they talked about was fundraising, and usually there's fundraising by grade. But they wanted to adopt the district slogan of Better Together. So they're kind of pooling all their fundraising things for the good of the entire school, not just each individual grade. So I thought that was really cool that they are also using Better Together. And I wanted to thank the RTEA. Their pumpkin fest this year was not quite how it was in past years, but they did hand out pumpkins and stencil bags and tools to, our school community, and appreciate that. And on the 19th of November, they're actually having like a pizza kit giveaway, which I'm excited for as well. That's all I have.
Anyone else?
This is for new business, correct?
New and old.
New and old, okay. I recently attended, I know it's, many of you, the workshop that was virtual. I promise I don't discuss the top 3 takeaways that I found interesting. In the initial keynote speaker address, it was Anna Maria Chavez. She was the executive director and chief executive officer of the National School Boards Association. She kicked off the event, and there was a message that was there that I found was an important takeaway, that kids don't think in deficit but in possibility. I attended a few other sessions that I will speak about. One is called Reimagining the Gifted and Talented Identification Process to Increase Equity and Access. And this involved members of Howell Township Public Schools discussing equity and access by demonstrating giftedness through multiple avenues, general intellectual ability, creativity, specific academic areas. And a suggestion or takeaway from this would be to take a look more closely at the New Jersey Strengthening Gifted and Talented Education Act from January 2020. Examine any related policies. There is a policy regarding this in the new policy alert from Strauss Esme 221. So it's something the policy committee down the line should definitely take a look at. And also examine the identification process to promote equity and increase access. And finally, a third one that really resonated with me was remote learning lessons for 20 beyond. In this, they shared teacher, student, and parent voices about lessons learned since March 2020, such as remote learning, how it helps some students and hinders others. And in this presentation, they shared the Live McNeil story. Now, I don't know if anyone here has seen it. And it's a YouTube video, and it's a summary of life as a distance learner. And when you watch this student, who's only 15 years old, show what it's like to be a distant learner all these days over and over again, it really brings to light, you know, the isolation and how that can, you know, eventually affect your mental. And I can share that link if other board members are interested in checking out. Since the attendees have access to all sessions, I do plan to follow up by doing more of the keeping the staff healthy mentally sessions. There was one healthy staff room, healthy classroom, but the time conflicted with when I was able to watch it, so we'll be able to back and push that.
Anyone at home? I also would like to, I had it in my notes to thank the RTA, and I haven't carved again with my children, but that's in the works for the weekend. I have in the past attended their function. It was a lot of fun. And obviously, we can't do it this year, but my kids are going to have fun carving it and enjoying that process. I also saw the Maria Chavez Girl Scouts, and I think what we saw today was really what she's one of the people that's the executive director of the Girl Scouts. Really, her quotes, kids think of possibility, and another one of her quotes was challenges or opportunities. I think it was evident what we had here today is come through the presentation. You know, her spirit, and that's within what we saw from the children today. I also saw the presentation that you talked about in the video, and I thought that was, if you can get a chance to see that, it's really moving to see what a child goes through all day with it, and you can see over the course of the school year how it really takes a toll on the child. And the last thing I'll talk about, I went to several of these workshops, but I'm not going to go through all of them. One thing, I was looking for the presentation, and they said it's going to be available afterwards. It's in the briefcase part. So if anybody's looking for that, like I was like, when are they going to send it to me? I was expecting an email, but it's, if you click on their piece, it goes up under the briefcase. Their presentation is there, and I had to like kind of sift through things so all of these pieces here, it's all videos that are up. You have to go someplace else to get the slides that go along with it. I went to a county roundtable, and I'm going to end on this. Robert Morrison and Stephen Shahoki, I think that's his last name. Robert is the executive director of the Arts New Jersey, and the other man has to do with NJSIAA, which has to do with sports and managing the sports across New Jersey. He's the president of that association. And my takeaway from their conversation is that they are encouraging that if students are in school, arts and sports should be in school, and that we need to balance the risk and the proper protocols in order to bring this to the kids, because some of these kids that have already existing that had trauma before, this was their B plan, this was their coping mechanism. So whether it be gym class or it be art class or it be a music class, you know, through the arts and any kind of physical engagement, that's so important for these kids to have that kind of an outlet, especially after seeing the video that I saw, the toll that it takes on our children, and then needing to embrace that part of it. And trauma is on the rise, and kids need this in order to help with their mental health and the stress and anxiety that's going along with the trauma, the pandemic that everybody's experiencing. And seeing students doing something together and doing something that they love all play into the health and the well-being of the students. And that really stuck with me because, you know, a lot of times, what do we do? How do we manage this? And it really resonated with me, and even with my own children. And I believe Steve addressed the issue with the rising numbers with COVID, and they reported that their data is showing that it's not happening in these programs, it's happening outside, like the gatherings in the houses and the parties and people not following the social distancing outside of school. So these programs have the protocols, and the kids are following them, they're doing what they need to do, but the outside influences are really affecting what's going on inside the schools, which speaks to what Dr. Kanani spoke about before regarding staying vigilant. So it was all connected. there anybody else? Okay. All right, I will then move on to the second, open public's comment section. Do I have a motion to open to the public?
So moved.
Second. Show of hands. Thank you. Let it be noted that nobody has come in to visit us even this evening, so there's nobody here for comments. We're going to close. Can I please have a motion to close? So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Show of hands. Thank you. And that only leaves us to adjourn for the night. So can I have a motion to adjourn for this evening?
So moved.
Second. And let it be noted, raise of hands, and let it be noted at 8:41. Thank you. Good night, everyone. Be well.